Hello and welcome to the 64th episode of Random or Nintendo. Random or Nintendo. I'm Jason, and virtually joining us, as always, we have to my left, Angel.
Yes, it is our Angel, co-host of the Random Nintendo podcast.
Yep, Nintendo. And on my virtual right, we have our other co-host, Kevin.
Yes, sir. The third chair of the Random Nintendo podcast.
Everyone loves Random Nintendo. You know, when you go out in the world and you're just like, what's your favorite game company? Everyone always says Nintendo. So it lines up. Nintendo. Actually, weird coincidence, and this is really a coincidence. I just realized it right now when I look down at my shirt. I'm wearing a Nintendo 64 shirt for the 64th episode, which is kind of a Nintendo 64.
It's a coincidence.
It is a total coincidence. I swear to God, it is a coincidence.
There's no way you probably knew that when we started this podcast. That you would be wearing this on the 64th episode. If anything, you ensured that we made it at least 64 episodes long. So
right, just for this shirt. Yeah. Now that we're at 64. We don't need to talk about the Switch 2 when it comes out next time. There is no further Random Nintendo or Nintendo podcast because I got the 64 shirt on the 64th episode. No, it actually wasn't planned, in all honesty. I actually have to do laundry, and this was one of the last shirts I had. That's why, fun fact, everyone, after this episode, I'm doing laundry. But, yeah, this was the shirt that I just grabbed, and I'm now realizing the numbers line up, which is fitting. Yeah, so no one's going to believe me, but I swear this was a coincidence, and I swear I didn't realize it till just now. So,
can't wait to
how are you guys doing?
This, what's the opposite of misinformation? Just information? These facts.
Yeah, just information. Just news opposed to fake news. And yes, this qualifies as news. 64 shirt on 64 episode, yeah.
Yeah, speaking of, I guess, 64 shirt, I guess I got an email whenever June 1st was. I guess yesterday as of this recording.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it turns out my raffle drawing, I got picked to visit the Nintendo Museum, so that'll be fun.
Ooh.
On August
You'll be seeing a lot of
4th.
To clarify real quick, you're going to the Nintendo Museum, not the Nintendo Museum, right? Because that's like the weird knockoff.
You know, I'm starting to think that maybe this is the knockoff because it's not Nintendo. But you know, because I mean,
well, that's very exciting.
You're Jason. I mean, if anyone knows what it's actually called, it'd be you. So yeah.
That's true. Everyone in the world, including their own employees, have been mispronouncing Nintendo since 1889.
Yes, I'm actually pretty excited to go to the Nintendo Museum. Although that does mean that I have to now plan a day trip to Kyoto because the initial plan was to not have any plans whatsoever, with the only exception being if I get access to this museum, which I now do, which is cool. You know, I'm still going to try to play it fast and loose. I've already had plenty of time to look at basically all the merch that's there. And while there are two extremes that this could go, you could go let me just get one of everything, at least as much as they let you, because there are some things that they only let you get one of, which is understandable in some, crazy in others. A quick example being they have, if you haven't seen any videos or pictures, there are giant controllers based, I think it's like the Famicom, SNES, Wii, and N64 controller. And each person is only allowed one of those per visit. So,
do you mean like the body pillow size ones?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And more than likely, my brother and I are leaning towards, I say brother because I'm mainly letting him pick whether we're going to get the N64 one or the Wii one. The Wii one just seems so much nicer as the pillow, but the
I feel like you got to get the Wii one.
It's just silly looking because it's like a trident. But, and then there's other ones that are kind of weird. Like there are these little blind boxes. There are there's like a Series 1 and Series 2 of blind boxes. Series 1 has essentially controllers and handhelds from NES all the way to, I believe it's either N64 or Virtual Boy. And then the Series 2 has GameCube to Switch. And they only let you get one of those blind boxes between the two of them. You can't even get one of each. So, yeah, I mean, either scalpers hit them really hard or maybe they were just this strict since the beginning. But honestly, like, I kind of just want...
Preemptively, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, it could be kind of overwhelming, which is like what I want to avoid on this kind of trip. Because, it'd be cool to get a Super Nintendo shirt, a GameCube shirt, a GameCube mug, a whatever for every console. But ultimately, I think I'd rather just have a shirt that just says Nintendo Museum on it, and that's
Yeah.
it. Maybe just something
Yeah.
that says Nintendo Museum. It doesn't even actually have to be a shirt. But yeah.
No, I feel that because anything that's just a brand of a console could have been from anywhere, but Nintendo
Actually,
Museum's
that's
only from
yeah,
Nintendo
even
Museum.
better point. Like I've seen shirts that just have the GameCube logo. Like sure, like this one was from Nintendo Museum, but at the end of the day, I'd rather get something as exclusive looking as possible.
I mean, again,
Nintendo
I'm wearing
Museum
a shirt that's
jockstrap.
There
I
you go.
mean, if they have that made me laugh enough to definitely get it. But yeah, nothing too crazy since we last chatted. I don't remember. That last episode was not 64, or was it not 62? Someone
It
did not
was
update the
63,
docket.
but someone called it who was hosting, who is going to Japan to see the Nintendo Museum. That person called it 62, and it was 63. I'm not going to name names. I would never do such a thing, but
Wow. But yeah, that's what's happening with Angel. He's
That's
going
very
to
exciting, though.
the
I'm
Nintendo Museum. Yeah.
I'm vicariously going to live through your Nintendo experience. What about you, Kevin? What's going on, Nintendo or otherwise?
Nothing really. Just got out of probably the busiest day of work that we've had so far on Saturday. I woke up at 4 p.m. yesterday.
Whoa.
That's how tired I was. That's how tuckered out I was from Saturday's activities at work. But yeah,
Wow.
I'm just hanging in there. Almost in about 2 weeks, me and Angel's brother Elvis were actually going to Europe for about 10 days. So that's
Oh,
exciting.
Yeah, Ireland.
Wow, like that's right for the Iron Maidens. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So
That'd
that'll
be
be
a fun
fun.
trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Well, since you mentioned that you were, what'd you say, barely hanging on or something, before we go fully into a lot of Nintendo topics, because we're right, for those unaware listening to a podcast with Nintendo or Nintendo in its name, the Switch 2 is out in 72 hours as of this recording, roughly.
Oh, maybe I'll let
Less,
Elvis
actually.
take my Nintendo Switch 2
So,
for his trip.
well, once it's out, he can do that. But yeah, no, my point was we have a lot of sort of Switch 2 related stuff today. So before we get to that, Kevin, I see and I know you are a big fan of a certain Mission Impossible. Well, the Mission Impossible
the
franchise.
Mission Impossible.
The Mission Impossible. So do you all touch on what you thought of the new movie before we dive into all things Nintendo or Tendo?
Yeah,
Did you
sure.
choose to accept it?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Neither should you choose to accept this mission.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe I missed that opportunity to say that.
The thing they do. in
Yes,
the
if you
movie.
choose to accept, and this podcast will self-destruct afterwards.
Well, yeah. Mission Impossible: The Final
Great
Reckoning.
reaction to a joke is people going,
You can do better.
I know, I could have done a lot better. Yeah.
Actually, give me 1 quick second. Be right back. Hold on. Just vamp.
Tendo. Yeah. No, but
Well, I mean,
yeah.
I guess that kind of Nintendo related. Actually, I'll talk a little more about it when we jump back to one of the later topics. So I guess I could say, I mean, my brother went to DK Land recently. I
I'm
won't say
so
much- too much
jealous.
about-
Okay, I need to mention this.
All right, I'm back.
It has come
Yeah.
to my attention real quick, and then we'll get to Mission Impossible. It has come to my attention that the Yoshi smoothie, the Yoshi apple melon smoothie that I was raving about from FanFest at Universal Studios Hollywood in our last episode, it has come to my attention. There is a tiny snack shack in Super Nintendo World in Florida called Yoshi's Snack Island, and they have it there permanently. And that alone might convince me to move to Florida. Possibly.
No, I could see you being.
Don't
a
let that be the
Floridian.
reason that you moved to Florida.
No, it
That
wouldn't be
godforsaken
the
Of
reason.
course, it would be.
Sorry, Floridians, but
Nothing against our listeners from Florida, but the place around you is not.
But it just sounds kind of appropriate that Yoshi's Snack Shack would be why.
Snack Island.
Snack
Good, sir.
Island. Oh, even better.
Like
than
Yoshi's Island, but with snack in the middle. They could have called it Yoshi's Snack Story, but that would have made less sense. But yes, the smoothie is there, and yes, Elvis's trip with another friend of ours looked like I'm so excited to go to the Florida Super Nintendo World at some point in the future. Mainly for the smoothie, but also for the ride. Yeah.
Yeah, come for the smoothie, stay for everything else.
Yeah.
While I didn't go, he did bring me some little goodies. Got a little Diddy plushie, some Donkey Kong pins, but most importantly, a Bowser patch and a Bowser cap, which are pretty cool. Pretty happy with those. But anyway, Mission Impossible and all that. How was it? Dead Reckoning?
No, Final Reckoning.
Part 2?
Actually.
Oh, Final Reckoning.
Oh,
Yeah,
They renamed it. Wasn't it called Dead Reckoning Part 2?
Yeah, Dead Reckoning Part 1 was a box office disappointment, so they just went ahead and were like, yeah, we will go back to the drawing board for this one and just call it something else. Yeah, the Mission Impossible series is a series that I have loved ever since, I guess, since Mission Impossible 3, which was directed by J.J. Abrams. That was my first real foray into that series.
Wait, Lost Man was worked on these?
Mm-hmm. His production company actually was
Still
was in
is the production
charge.
company, right?
Say that
Something
again, sorry?
Robot?
Yeah, Bad Robot.
Yeah, isn't Bad Robot still involved to this day? Like the company?
No. So after I don't remember which one. I think it might have been Fallout, which was Mission Impossible 6. I think that's the first one that Bad Robot didn't have a hand in since 3.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Is that the time that McG or whatever his name is took over as director?
McHugh.
in parallel?
McG is the
McHugh.
director of the what are those movies? The Charlie's Angels movies.
And
So-
also a lot of episodes of Chuck on NBC back in the day,
Sure.
which is probably where I got the name from the credits.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is effectively, Dead Reckoning Part 2, but now they want to add some absolute finality by calling it the Final Reckoning. Like I said, I'm a huge Mission Impossible fan. I think that these are the pinnacle of action movies, at least starting with Mission Impossible 4, Ghost Protocol. That one was directed by the incredible director Brad Bird. And then the one that followed was Rogue Nation, which that's where essentially this guy, Christopher McQuarrie, McHugh, as Tom Cruise affectionately dubs him, pretty much took over the series. So Rogue Nation, followed by Fallout, and then Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning are all by the same team. I really, really liked Dead Reckoning. It's not my favorite in the series. My favorite in the series, and spoiler alert, to this day is still going to be Mission Impossible 6 Fallout. I think that movie is just a pristine action movie that is just so good. But a lot of people really didn't like that movie, or they were at least disappointed by it. Which kind of makes sense because the highs of Rogue Nation and then followed by Fallout, to get something that wasn't as good as the previous movie, I can understand why people were a little disappointed by that one, but I still loved it. Final Reckoning. Final Reckoning.
That laugh didn't sound good.
Final Reckoning starts off, for like the first hour, it's easily the weakest Mission Impossible movie. And then there's a turning point where, spoiler alert, Milchek is introduced into the movie.
I saw that in the trailer, and I literally
He's
was
in
like, did the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the screen thing.
Milchek is
Yep.
in it, and
He's so great.
from that point forward in the movie, Final Reckoning becomes the best movie of all time. Just straight up.
Wow.
It goes from being the worst, and maybe not the worst because, man, Mission Impossible 2 is freaking terrible. But, Final Reckoning, if it wasn't for those first 40 to, honestly, like an hour, this would definitely be the best movie in the series, but those first 40 minutes definitely drag it down a bit. It's just, man, these movies are known for their set pieces. Obviously, this one isn't any different. And they threw their entire paychecks into the final two into just 2 set pieces in this one. One that takes place inside a submarine, and one that takes place on 2 biplanes. And these scenes are so breathtakingly awesome that I made sure that I saw this at the biggest theater that I could. I saw these movies at the Irvine Spectrum.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Which
big
had
IMAX.
big IMAX. Took my mom, took
Where
my
I saw
sister.
Dark Knight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for the exact same reason if I wanted the biggest screen.
Yeah. And yeah, just some of the craziest stunt filmings that you'll ever see in your entire life. Of course, we all know that Tom Cruise is a madman and does his own stunts at the age of 61, I believe he was when he was filming this movie. No. I think he was like 59 or 60. Because I believe right now he's about 62 years old. The movie is messy. It does close, it does conclude the storyline that was introduced in Dead Reckoning. But and this is a slight spoiler, it does introduce some finality into the series, but it's not like where this movie ends. I could absolutely see them just going, hey, let's make another one of these. Because it's not a sort of finality that completely wraps up everything that this franchise is. They could absolutely like continue this series with or without Tom. And I'm not going to spoil the ending, obviously. I'm going to try to be as vague as possible. But yeah, I think this movie definitely solidifies the series as the best action movie series of all time. I still haven't seen Furiosa. Mad Max Fury Road is probably my second favorite action movie of all time, right behind Mission Impossible Fallout. Just these movies are so good and so smart with how they tackle the sort of the spy genre. Because you do get a little bit of espionage. I'm sorry?
No, I'm just surprised by your top 2 action movie picks.
Yeah, Fallout right by, and then Fury Road right behind it. Yeah, Dead Reckoning, or I keep calling it Dead Reckoning, but Final Reckoning is my second favorite movie, absolutely, in this series, which this movie series only has 2 bad movies, quite honestly. Actually, it only has 1 bad movie, which is Mission Impossible 2. But I'm a little sad, of course, that this series is done, but I'm happy that it does end on a high note. There are some people that actually dislike this movie more than Dead Reckoning, which is just crazy to me. But whatever, that's your opinion. If you don't like those movies, that's fine. I'm still having a grand old time with this series, and I did, and I'm happy that this movie series exists because I loved it from beginning to end. Yeah, that's all I really want to say about the movie.
I will admit I'm behind on them. I need to catch up. I think I don't know if I saw 5 or 6, but I need to marathon them because I do want to see, and I need to do it fast because I do want to see this one on a big screen because I've heard the submarine sequence is really cool.
The
and even how they
submarine
use the
sequence is
format
insane.
really cool.
Yep.
Better hurry up. I'm guessing you're running out of time.
I know, especially with Switch 2 coming out. That's going to take up some time. But
yeah, I mean, I figure once the Switch 2 comes out, you're basically not doing anything else. At least for a couple hours. But yeah.
Yeah, correct. For about 2 hours, and then I'm back to my usual. Then I'm back to speculating about the Switch 3. Yeah, no, but glad to hear the back part of Mission Impossible was as good as it was. Yeah. So was Kevin, was the issue with the first part without saying too much, just exposition, like too much exposition, too much talking, not enough stuff happening? Or?
I'm sorry, you're talking about Final Reckoning, the first hour?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is just exposition city, man. Yeah, and not only that, but it's also a little boring, and some of the comedy in that first hour doesn't land.
Oh, I see.
But otherwise, like, fantastic movie. Can't recommend it enough if you love these movies.
Definitely got to check it out. Cool. Cool. Well, that was our one non-Nintendo thing of the episode as we head into the launch of the Switch and discussing the launch of the Switch. So, it's already discussing the launch, to be fair, but it did seem like, we're less than 72 hours out. And it is pretty wild how, after years now of rumors and speculation, the actual thing is really like this week. All those conversations about Switch Pro that led to the Switch 2 that then led to the actual Switch 2. And fun fact, actually, if you're not tired of that cycle, Bloomberg, about a week ago, reported that Samsung is pushing to become the supplier of screens for the Switch 2 OLED. So the cycle of never-ending upcoming Switches will continue. But as we head into the launch of the actual Switch 2, as you know it, I thought it might be kind of interesting or fun to do like a bit of a temperature or like hype check among us. Like, how are you guys feeling? Angel, you have one on pre-order. Kevin, I know you're waiting for it to just be more readily available. But how are you guys feeling about the Switch 2 in general at this point? Like, where are your heads at as we come into the home stretch here?
I don't know. I feel weird. Like, part of me is obviously excited for new Mario Kart, but it's just one of those things where I guess it's just not one of those things that I'm prioritizing as far as like putting time into outside of playing something with my brother. So it's kind of like cool, I just want to get it so that I can update it and then just continue where I left off. So like wherever I was in the gaming space, like I don't see myself going out of my way to play Mario Kart World the way I did Mario Kart 8, where I just played it nonstop until I 3-starred everything. We'll see. But like, there's just, unfortunately, other things are just preoccupied in my mind right now. But nonetheless, it's cool to have this new toy. It doesn't, I guess the only random side thing is that, I guess I've been targeted recently by a lot of, I guess, clickbaity shorts of, I guess the Switch 2 came out already and has already failed according to a lot of people, and how Nintendo could still turn it around. Just like half the things they're saying like don't make any sense. They're just comparing it to like the Wii U and the new 3DS, or even just like early 3DS launch. But
I don't know if I fully follow that.
That whole conversation seems interesting, but overall excited. But like, it's also been one of the easiest waits because, like I said, like half the time I haven't even been thinking about the Switch 2. Like, I was surprised it was even ready for me to pick up on Wednesday. I thought I was gonna.
Oh yeah, you thought I told you yesterday it's coming a day earlier than
yeah.
You
I thought I was gonna get it on Thursday.
Dismayed at getting it early, which was funny.
Yeah, I'm not like, and I'm only getting it early just so my brother has the option of playing it early. Like, I'm not going to really bother with it until Friday. Maybe just to set things up, I guess, or just download Mario Kart. But, it sounds weird to say. It sounds like I don't care for it. I feel like I'm just checking the box. Maybe once, more specific Switch 2 games come out that I'm really excited for, then I know my excitement will definitely jump up then. But right now, it's exactly what I wanted it to be, and it's just a Switch that isn't going to overheat after I play it for like 30 minutes. So, yeah, that's pretty much what that is.
What's interesting to me about that whole conversation you're mentioning in passing about like the clickbait, it's the next Wii U and Sarah. There's some crazy stat that only like 28% of people who want a Switch 2 in Japan were able to pre-order one. Like, based on the interest expressed and stuff. So I don't think it's going to be. Nintendo's planning to sell 15 million in the first year, which is what the Switch 1 sold in the first year, but also that was fiscal year. So they're hoping to do a Switch 2 in 2 months less what they did with Switch 1 in its first year. And that's 15 million, which actually would make it the fastest selling console of all time. And it seems like demand is there, and it seems like investors at Nintendo's financial briefing were more concerned about why Nintendo's estimate was too conservative and not aggressive enough. And Nintendo had to keep explaining, well, it's a higher price and this, that, and next thing. It was basically telling their investors, listen, 15 million is the goal we're going to try and hit, which is still a record. And So yeah, all this clickbait about it's the next Wii U. I don't know if I buy that. The only potential way it could be, in my mind, is if some of the demand bubble we're seeing is actually scalpers driving up demand, and in reality, when this thing drops, they're going to be everywhere, and we all like went into panics for nothing. But I guess time will tell on that front. Although it's funny that you said you didn't mind waiting an extra day, because I just got word the other day that the GameStop that I was going to pick up my Switch 2 at on launch night can't do launch night because the mall doesn't want to have their security working later that night. So they canceled their midnight launch. So we'll see when exactly I get it. But yeah, it's funny. I'm like, oh man, I can't get it 12 hours earlier. And you're like, oh man, I have to get it 12 hours earlier. So it's kind of a weird reverse. But say lovey. What about you, Kevin? Where are you at with the? Or sorry, go ahead, Angel. Where are you saying?
Oh no, I was gonna say like it's just part of the same mentality right now. At the rate that I could play first single player games, like just like for myself, is so low that like I wouldn't have minded if the console was delayed further. Like it doesn't make a difference. But Mario Kart multiplayer stuff, that's at least exciting. So
right. Fair. How about you, Kevin? Where are you at now that we're coming in on the home stretch and all the information's out there and everything?
I kind of don't care. Like, I'm surprised by how much I don't care, honestly, because
interesting.
This should be exciting. This should be, this is a new console launch, and I just can't seem to give a crap. Like, I think it's probably just because it is so, I guess, simple.
Similar.
Yeah, similar. Yeah, that's the word to just just a Switch One. It's a better Switch, and I can't for the life of me seem to care about just a better Switch. Don't get me wrong. I think it's awesome that we're getting a better Switch, but it's not as exciting as if they were doing something different,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I get what you mean. I kind of like, I'm sort of in a similar, but so for me, I think what's been unexpected is how much I've been thinking more about the logistics of owning a Switch 2. If that like first off, I mean, you guys heard what I said in April when I played it. Like, I'm very excited to get this new experience on Nintendo. Like, hardware feels great, games play great, it's bigger, it's a better Switch, just like you're saying, it's just more of a Switch. Magnetic Joy-Cons, how can you not love magnets? Like, on that level, I'm as hyped as I've been. But I think you nailed something, like the simplicity of it. Like, we've also talked about here on the show a lot, like, how the Switch 2 is more of an iterative release, right? And how, it'll be the games that stand out now with their new gameplay ideas. Like, it's not about Mario Kart being playable at home or on the go like 8 Deluxe was. It's about Mario Kart's now an interconnected world. Either you buy into that or you don't. Or how Donkey Kong Bonanza is about level destruction and physics in a way that, like, the Switch one simply couldn't handle, but it is still, like, a 3D platformer. Like, that, the generational leap is always felt with the games, and that's ultimately where it's going to be felt here. That said, so there's this old recurring SNL bit. Bear with me here. There's this old recurring SNL bit that Fred Armisen and Vanessa Bayer used to do. And I doubt the two of you have seen it, since you're not the biggest SNL watchers, like, at all. But it was a Weekend Update piece where they come to the desk and do, like, a pseudo interview with then Seth Meyers. And they did it again at the 50th anniversary special, so anyone who saw that may know what I'm talking about. But basically, the characters were called the best friends from growing up. And usually they were lifelong friends of some major international figure, like a dictator or something. And they were, of course, because of the dictator, like, praising and gushing. But then they'd, like, wait a beat, drop their voices down to a whisper and be like, I will say, and, nitpick some stuff about the person. So when I was thinking about, like, where my head's at with Switch 2, like, definitely my hype is still there for everything it will be and do. But I will say my brain is having a little trouble reconciling a quote-unquote new console generation when it feels more like we're upgrading from a current iPhone to a newer iPhone. You know what I mean? And, like, here's the thing. Well, one of two things, actually. The upgrade itself, even when you upgrade an iPhone, is fun to do. Added power, added functionality, added features, quality of life improvements. You get the new iPhone and over the next few weeks and months, like, wow, there's all these nice little perks it now has. And here's the other thing. I said there are two things. Nintendo spent much of the Switch's lifespan suggesting, and then we spent that time analyzing, that they'd want to do exactly this approach with a new Switch. I mean, have everything carry over, make the Nintendo account the center of the ecosystem, let Switch 2 and Switch 1 coexist, all that stuff. As far back as Satoru Iwata making comparisons to the then codename NX to how iOS works, like Nintendo's been beating this drum about this seamless transition between devices and generations and just this sort of pivot towards a new console just being like in a broader ecosystem of all those devices together. And all we keep seeing about like Switch 2's system level interface, the way in which you can transfer your entire Switch 1 to the Switch 2, the backwards compatibility being the first thing they announced, the ability for existing games to run better on a Switch 2 if optimized. All of that fits so nicely and neatly into this vision of what we've heard a variation of since 2016, essentially. Like, never mind it also being how PC gaming essentially has worked forever, right? But as a Nintendo-only gamer, I've been wired to think of generations as like isolated major events. I think kind of what you were sort of touching on, Kevin. Like, yeah, I could play my DS games on a 3DS or Wii games on a Wii U, but there was still so much that felt new about those devices themselves. Different control inputs, different system level software, what have you. And Switch 2, from everything we've now seen via Nintendo Today updates and the like, with the menus and everything, like the closest analogy I can think of is it's the spec bump of a proper console generation, but the experience bump of going from like a Game Boy to a Game Boy Color. Like, for all intents and purposes, the experience you get is one-to-one with what you have on Switch today. It's just prettier now because it's in higher res and can do a little more. Just like back then, the Game Boy Color had a little more RAM and could give you colors instead of monotone. So what's been a little weird for me, I think, I wouldn't call it an identity crisis, but there's these unexpected trains of thought about like what getting a Switch 2 is to me, like what it means to me. Like, I never trade in a console. I own every single piece of Nintendo hardware I've ever bought. I have every single home console plugged into my living room entertainment center. Do I go back to play them? Rarely. But they're like these time capsules of their era, and they're always there to revisit. So like my GameCube represents, my Nintendo fandom of 2001 to 2006, exactly how I left it. My Wii is a capsule of my college gaming and riding that wave of like fun motion control hype, and turning it back on goes right back to that time. And with Switch 2, it's like the lines seem like they're going to blur in the same way that, transferring your old iPhone's data to your new iPhone does. And I wasn't expecting to have feelings about this going into launch. Like, I've been spending way too much time looking into like the transferring process from my OLED Switch to my Switch 2, because on the one hand, I want to leave my OLED exactly as it's been so I could preserve that time capsule of that era of gaming of Nintendo. But on the other hand, Nintendo's still supporting a lot of those games on Switch 1 and even updating some of them in really cool ways. Like, we've talked about Switch 2 editions before, but they put out a list of Switch 1 games that aren't getting the branding but are getting updates. And for stuff like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet or Echoes of Wisdom or ARMS of all games, it's frame rate updates as you'd expect. They are fixing Scarlet and Violet. Maybe they're doing some graphical flourishes for some games. Randomly, ARMS is getting HDR support, sure. But then they're doing stuff like supporting game share. So like multiple people can now play co-op off a single copy of Captain Toad or Mario 3D World online, even though those are Switch 1 games from years ago. Or like Game Builder Garage. They're updating it to include Joy-Con 2 mouse controls, which is kind of awesome, actually. I mean, it's great because you're building games in it, but also like maybe a dry run for Mario Maker 3 or Mario Paint or something. I don't know. But my point is, if all these games
Mario Maker 3 would be amazing
with a mouse, right?
Yeah, like that literally resolves the only issue with Mario Maker 2, or the only reason I didn't even really bother, because I have so much fun building levels in 1, and 2, I just didn't want to bother. Not having a touchscreen with the level of precision you had with the stylus versus the capacitive one. But yeah.
And the mouse in general does resolve an issue that Nintendo had of like, how do you get like the DS style? Like if you play in handheld mode, you can do stuff with the touchscreen. How you replicate that on the TV? Well, now you have the mouse. Like, it can do a lot. And Mario Maker being a prime example. But my broader point was, if all these games big and small from Switch 1 are now changed and improved on Switch 2, I don't want to necessarily start fresh with Switch 2 like my mind is telling me to, because whether it's, new party modes in Mario Party Jamboree in the Switch 2 edition, or they're adding mouse support to a game like Game Builder Garage. That game, by the way, barely sold like 1 million copies in its lifespan. The message, the fact that they're updating that, like, to me, the message here from Nintendo is that Switch 2 and Switch 1 are a unified library where you'll want everything from your Switch 1 on your Switch 2, which kind of makes the Switch 2 less of a new thing, right? And never mind the simple continuation of like Switch 1 games as they exist today into the Switch 2 era. Like for the longest time, I was saying here on the podcast how it'd be cool if Nintendo found a way to carry the concept of Tetris 99's Maximus Cups into the Switch 2 era. And I was saying, maybe with Mario Kart somehow they could do it. And they could still do it with Mario Kart. Like imagine new islands around the main world that are themed around different games or IPs that are timed with their launches. Like that'd be super cool. But also, turns out they can simply keep supporting Tetris 99 and it'll live on Switch 2 exactly how it lived on Switch 1, as we now know. Or another example, I recently downloaded Breakout Beyond on my Switch. And if you don't know much, well, I guess first, you guys know Breakout, right? The paddle game. Yes, no?
I think I'm familiar.
Okay, well, I guess for those who don't, Breakout is that brick baking game where you control a paddle, you hit a ball into bricks, and the ball ricochets around them, and you want to clear all the bricks on the screen to beat the level. It's a classic Atari thing, and Atari's on this streak of teaming up with indie devs to revamp classic IPs. So they got like Way Forward to do Yars Rising, for example. And for this one, they got the gang at Choice Provisions, makers of Bit Trip and the Runner games, to do their own take on Breakout. So now instead of it being vertical, the game's shifted to like the paddles on the left and the bricks are on the right. And the aesthetic is like, I know. And the aesthetic is like Breakout through the lens of like Bit Trip games. So there's a lot of rainbow colors, cool throwback aesthetics, kind of a 70s Atari vibe, a techno soundtrack that like if you do combos, like the music syncs up to it. And on the gameplay side, they're doing a bunch of power-ups and chaos. You can like have multiple balls and force fields and shoot lasers from your paddle. And you can like slow down your paddle with a button and speed up your paddle with a button. And what I'm actually getting the most mileage out of here is co-op play. I posted something about this to the same effect, but it's been fun to kind of like full circle go back to like one of my last Switch 1 games, or I thought was one of my last Switch 1 games until I realized Switch 2 is basically Switch 1 plus more. It's been fun to like go back and do a game where it's a super familiar gameplay experience, yet you now have co-op, and it plays into the fact that you can like pop off a Joy-Con and hand it to someone, in this case Rachel, and sit on airplane or whatever in tabletop mode and like play it like you're in an early Switch commercial, which is what I've been doing. And the game's just fun in general. So yeah, it flew under the radar. It's worth checking out if you have any affinity for the Breakout series or played it as one of the like included games on the old iPod or whatever. Like there used to be one game on the iPod, it was this. But to my broader Switch 2 point, having like a Tetris 99 or a Breakout Beyond be just there on the Switch 2 and the same experience as it was on Switch 1, or how they're enhancing old games for Switch 2, like in terms of value you get out of your game library, that's super awesome. It all lives on. The fact that games new and old both benefit from Switch 2 is super cool. But man, as a guy who is hardwired into thinking each new generation is a clean slate, my mind has devolved into thoughts like, well, I should probably transfer everything, but I don't want to leave my Switch OLED completely wiped. Well, okay, maybe if I do a local transfer with the console side by side, it clones and doesn't wipe. But if I do the server-based transfer, it will. But virtual game cards, where you can have a Switch 1 and a Switch 2 both under your same Nintendo account as primary consoles, I could just switch the games I may want onto the Switch 2. But then that means I need to constantly think about the cloud save data. But what about the games that don't support cloud save data? Will I ever need those? Okay, so maybe I transfer everything, then cancel the re-downloaded games that I don't need right then and there, but I'll still have the save data, and I can just use that there in case I need it in the future. And it's just like, why am I having to think about this at this level? Like, that's pretty much where I've landed, by the way, as I'm just cloning it and canceling the downloads. But the research and thought that went into that single breath of random ideas I just spouted, that's unlike any new console generation I've ever experienced before. Like, that's without even getting into the situation around making sure your playtime stay accurate across systems, which is a whole other thing, where apparently if you put your account on multiple Switches, each game's hour count on your friends list profile will only reflect the system on which you put the larger number of hours into that game, not the cumulative total between them or something. Again, it just, something I never needed to think about in past console generations. It's like new generation, new start, here we go. Same with SD card stuff. Like you just get an SD card to think about the future, right? Nope. For this generation, you got to think about what your library is in the past. And they're also harder to get, SD cards, because they're a newer SD Express card. And they don't even make big enough ones for some people. Like, Angel, don't you have like 2 terabytes of a library?
Do.
You literally can't transfer to the Switch 2 in full right now. Like, it's just such a strange... It's so bizarre. Oh, and how about the screenshot gallery? Do I want all my Switch 1 era images on my Switch 2? Seems like I would if it's a full transfer, but I wouldn't if I want anything resembling the clean slate of a new generation. So again, it's really just stuff I never needed to consider in the past, and that's like consuming all my Switch 2 thoughts lately. And you can call it crazy, or frankly, probably OCD of me on some level to be considering these things at this level. But I bring it up because it's just so interesting to me, them having to have these thoughts at all, regardless of what internal thing of mine is driving the thoughts. I'm having them for the first time with any generational jump of a Nintendo product I've ever experienced in my 30 years as a fan. And I just find that interesting, that's kind of where it's evolved to now. And I think what's especially ironic is from the outside perspective, Switch 2 isn't just a new generational thing for Nintendo. It's a new console generation for sure, but it's maybe one of the biggest, splashiest ones they've ever done. Like, if you look at everything surrounding what Switch 2 is and its place in the broader ecosystem, Nintendo's doing like huge moves, 3 of which I thought would be worth highlighting and talking about. One of them ties back into Nintendo World because I know you mentioned it, Angel, but like the marketing we're seeing with Switch 2, we're seeing a marketing campaign right now at a scale that feels very un-Nintendo. I mean, Switch 2 is on Seattle Mariner baseball jerseys. It's on billboard. They're using billboards. Nintendo never uses billboards in major cities. They're airing a Paul Rudd starring commercial during basketball finals. They plastered a Switch 2 on the side of a building next to LAX. They're taking on a role as a Summer Game Fest partner for the first time later this week. This is the first time Nintendo's ever been involved. Like, it just feels like between that and the more regular ad spend that Nintendo does with social media and targeted campaigns and regular TV ads, it just feels like they're really treating this like it is a big moment. It is a big changeover. They're spending, I think I said this last episode, they're spending nearly $1 billion on marketing for this thing, $996 million to be precise. And that's a crazy big number. So that's one way that, even though what we're getting out of Switch 2 is kind of more familiar, they're trying to make it not, still seem like a new generation. A second way is we're also getting refreshes of major character key art pretty much across the board. Like, usually that comes with a given game, right? Like, oh, here's Mario with a new look for this game. Here's Luigi, he got cleaned up for this game. But it's like all of them at once. Like, we're in a whole new generation of Nintendo here. Like, they're really trying to be like, it's a new generation. Some are minor. Mario and Luigi and I think the Fuller Mushroom Kingdom crew got pretty basic updates to their generic renders, but like some of their default poses. But like Donkey Kong, that's big. And to a lesser extent, Diddy Kong. They did a whole redesign. I don't even think we've talked about it here on the show yet, but they have completely changed Donkey Kong from his rare, well, not completely. He's no longer the rare design. He's closer to the movie design. He's way more expressive. He's different. Notably different, and they're doing this weird thing where they're changing him at the same time they open Super Nintendo World in Florida with the DK expansion that still uses the old design, yet everywhere else they're not just changing Donkey Kong going forward, they're like straight up erasing the old Donkey Kong from other things where he previously was, like the icons on the Switch.
With this revisionist history.
I know, it's so weird. I mean, I loved it. Do you guys like the new Donkey Kong design? Like, I actually really love it.
I do not.
You do not. What's your concern with it?
That it's not the rare design. I grew up with the rare design. That's pretty much why.
Well, that's fair. Can't argue with that. Angel, what about you?
I also prefer the old one. I wouldn't say like it's not a bad design, but it looks too goofy for me. To the point where like it just kind of, I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe. Like when I look at. And kind of like we kind of said, like we also grew up with the other one. When I look at the old design, I'm just filled with joy. When I look at this new one, I feel nothing. But I will say that he does, I guess, vibe a little more with like the rest of the Nintendo characters.
Like imagine this DK in the next Smash Bros. I can't see it.
Which is definitely what's going to happen. I mean,
no, yeah, absolutely.
Have to split Diddy's eyes into two. Why? I liked his Sonic eyeball.
I will say on the Diddy front, one of the things they changed is they removed the Nintendo logo from his hat and they put DD on a pin on his hat, like in the movie. And that is a nice parallel to Donkey Kong's tie with the DK. And I imagine Dixie will have a DX in some capacity somewhere on her clothes too. So that's kind of a nice through line.
She did just have a rare pin, a rare.
It's probably now going to be DX.
Which is probably just not going to be a thing.
Yeah, but I actually really like the new Donkey Kong. I like how expressive he is. I feel like when I see the old one, I'm like, oh, he looks so stiff. But I understand the affinity for it.
Yeah, like
That
I'm not
you
saying
guys
he's
have.
not more expressive or not like a really good design, but if you're just asking
Yeah.
me which one do I like more, I'm just gonna pick the old one.
The thing that trips me up is I can't think of a single Nintendo character design where they like went back and undid what they previously had, like the Switch icons. They like 2 years ago did like some Switch News app, you know, the Switch News on the console. They did like a Donkey Kong games to check out or something. Maybe it was a few months ago. I don't know. But it had like a banner with the old art. And they went back, however many months or years, and swapped in the new character art to that same banner for this old story. Like they are like slowly erasing him, the rare one. It's so strange when every other character, they just embraced all the art styles, you know? Like, you can get, like, one of 15 different Mario art styles in your Switch icons, but you can only get the new Donkey Kong. The rare one's not like a legacy thing. He's just gone. So that strikes me as a little weird, personally. But I guess Nintendo thinks they know what they're doing. But yeah, so the designs are the second thing that was that jumped out at me as, like, this does feel like a new generation. Because, you know, when's the last time they redesigned a major character? Like, they really haven't in a long time. But one last major change worth touching.
Link?
Yeah. Well, I guess, yeah, because they made him blue. Yeah.
With blue
I
and
guess
no
Link would
hat.
count.
And
Actually, that's a good point. Link.
Twilight Princess Link is still the one they have in all the Nintendo
the-
Store marketing. At least like the
Yeah,
Abbey
yeah.
Road one. Where if it was the Donkey Kong, they probably would have already tried to replace him.
Which is what's so weird. Like, why not embrace? But especially with the theme park that literally just opened, still using the old DK design.
Yeah,
Because
I'm sure that's
obviously it
just
took
like
years.
a product of like when the decisions were made. But, you know, I guess give it a decade when they have to refurbish a lot of the stuff on the park. And we might see that new DK start to take
Can you
over.
imagine the execs at Universal when Nintendo started swapping out DKs and then going like, we just made a bus wrap of the shuttle from the airport in Orlando that has the big toothy like frozen smile DK, and you change it to this expressive dude? Like, what? Like, we put all this money in, and literally the week before we open, you go and change him. Like, I can't imagine they're happy. But then again, like, the core Super Nintendo world, like, the Mario part is modeled after 3D World, not Odyssey, not Wonder, not anything like that, and it still is fine. But, yeah, I don't know. It's strange. But, yeah, the other thing worth touching, I think, with Switch 2 is, in terms of, like, the three things that do make it feel like a new generation in some ways, this whole game key card thing. Which, again, is one of those instances where, like, it actually does feel like we're in a proper new generation. Like, it's a new delivery method for games. How familiar are you guys with this key card thing that they're doing?
Pretty familiar. I mean, it's basically like sounds like it's amazing for the game companies, but
Not so amazing for the
consumer.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, if you're getting the game key card as a consumer, I mean, if it's available as an option, it seems like you're better off getting the other version of it. But, you know, the full game card. I mean, the traditional game cartridge.
Well, that's the thing. They're not doing that. It's either game key card or digital among the ones that are choosing game key card. So for those who aren't as familiar that are listening, just real quick. Basically, there's a third branch of ways to buy games for Switch 2 now, which is this game key card. So it's, for those who aren't familiar, it's mostly a blank cartridge that gives you some perks of a physical game, but it's essentially just a digital game. So you insert the cartridge and you download the game from the eShop, but the download, and the cartridge gives you access to that download, but the download is tied not to your Nintendo account, but to the cartridge itself. So whenever you want to play it, even though it's a digital download, you got to pop the cart back into your Switch 2. But by that same token, if you want to hang out with a friend and give them the cartridge, they could pop it into their Switch 2, download the game, and play it. And according to interviews with the Switch 2 team, everything else about it's a normal cartridge. So it still tastes awful if you lick it. Like, it's still a cartridge in that regard, but there's no actual, like, game anywhere on the cartridge. It's just a code. It's just a thing that triggers a download that's not tied to your account. It's tied to the cartridge.
A key, if you will.
a key, if you will. In many ways, it kind of feels like the quote-unquote better execution of how Xbox One originally was going to do its games that were digital only. Like here, it's still digital, but it comes with the flexibility of being shareable or resellable, and other people can access the game that same way, like with a physical game. So there is that, I guess.
But I feel like that's not any different than just putting the goddamn game on the cart.
Correct. So yeah. So but then yeah, because then if you put it on the cart, obviously it's all there. But the difference, and this is something that's haunted Nintendo forever, plagues them time and time again. Cartridges are expensive, so that's what, from the business side, that's how this thing came to be, because third parties are loving this thing. Like in the N64 days, the reason third parties didn't support the N64 as much as PS1 is cartridge prices. And what we're seeing now with third parties on even the Switch 1 is they do code and box releases because they don't want to pay for the cartridge. So they want the physical store presence, but they don't want to pay for the storage on that little piece of plastic. So game key cards kind of split the difference. Why did I say it like that? Game key cards. But it kind of splits the difference in
It's worse. It's worse than just putting a box with a download code on it. Oh, well, I guess for the consumer, you can sell it, yeah.
It's a little better for the consumer. It's a clever way from a business perspective for them to split the difference, because the third party gets the cheaper physical option. It still has the upsides of offering the pro consumer abilities to share and resell. But yeah, obviously for the consumer, the immediate downside that comes to mind with this whole thing is it's still a digital download at the end of the day. You still need to have space on your Switch 2 or your SD card. You still need the internet to initially get the game, even though you're physically kind of holding the game in your hand. And should you wish to live the gaming time capsule life that I was describing with my past Nintendo consoles earlier that I still have hooked up, like, you better hope any server or thing that needs to run is still running decades from now. Otherwise, your game is non-existent, even if you're physically kind of holding it in your hand. So that's like the weird do-si-do they're doing with this. But
shout out to CD Projekt Red for actually putting their game on the cartridge.
Yes, that's what I was about to say. CD Projekt Red did it with Cyberpunk 2077. Marvelous did it with Rune Factory and Story of Seasons, and Nintendo's doing it with their own games, so Mario Kart and the Zeldas. But everything else at launch for Switch 2 is a game key card. Or a code and box, which is like one step even further backwards. Like Split Fiction is a code and box only. But yeah, there are 28 games at launch, and literally there's only like 6 that are actually on the cartridge. Now, part of that might be because supposedly the only options for third parties right now are you pay for a 64 gig cartridge or you get a game key card cartridge, or you go digital. Nintendo hasn't like scaled up the options for cartridges that are smaller. So if you have like a game like Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, which is a game key card game coming to Switch 2, you don't need a 64 gig cartridge for your 4 gig game in the publisher's mind. So they go the game key card route. So that might also be factoring into this even more. But yeah, it's such an interesting, weird little, I mean, does this system bother either? Like, would you ever get a game key card game?
No, absolutely not.
Same.
Definitely not.
Angel?
There's literally no point to, because like the only games I ever got physically were single player games that had the option for a physical release. And it's specifically because, typically once I beat a single player game, sometimes there was a space saving thing, but I would delete that data or offload it or whatever, and then just save it on the shelf or whenever, or I could let someone borrow it, just like that. It was just nice, or I could just come back to it later. But mainly, I just didn't need, because I download a ton of games, so I just needed to save the space. This doesn't help me with that because the download has to be on the console. It's kind of like a nuisance at that point.
It seems like a great thing for people who are selling the games, and not as great of a thing for anyone who wants to buy the game. Like, I will say, for me as a person who likes his physical games, it's not ideal. Like, I'm glad Nintendo for the foreseeable future is sticking to full releases on cartridges themselves. I can only assume that's a move to keep retailers happy, so they continue to get like prime co-marketing opportunities like they're getting with Switch 2 right now at Best Buy and Walmart and Target. Like, Walmart's literally converting their poles in front of the stores to be Switch 2 branded Mario displays, and Target's doing like a full-on Nintendo merch drop in tandem with Switch 2 as like an in-store celebration of the console. So like, I'm sure Nintendo's like, we'll put real games on real cartridges in your stores to keep you happy. But like, for me, I feel like having a physical collection of games does go a bit back to the idea of the time capsule I was saying before when discussing, the generational leaps. Like, if something happens to an SD card or a server turns off, I'm no better off with a game key card than I would be with a full digital game. Like, I just have a spot on my shelf that is essentially a blank game. Like, it's like a step away if I just bought an empty case and drew my own label on it for a digital game I downloaded. Like, it's really not, there's nothing there, so to speak. But in thinking about, like, I was thinking about this as I was putting together my notes for today's episode, and I was realizing that, like, it's not entirely the game key card's fault. Like, I'm the one stuck in the mindset and disappointed by what it means for my physical collection. And I know it sounds like Stockholm Syndrome by blaming myself here and not Nintendo or the game key card. But if you think about it, us physical game purchasers who like to buy all their games physical, not pick and choose like you, Angel, we already kind of accepted the premise of what game key cards are pitching, begrudgingly or not. Like, from the first time someone who buys physical games bought and downloaded DLC, the ball was in motion, right? Like, suddenly there's a piece of a game that's beyond what's on the cartridge, and collectively as a set of consumers, we all spoke with our wallets and said, yes, more of that. Give us digital stuff that augments your physical. And sure, there are some hardcore preservationists who insist on everything still being physical. Like, there are folks out there who import special versions of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe that have the Booster Course Pass tracks on the cartridge with the core game. I think they're sold in like either the Middle East or like Taiwan or something, and they will import so they have the full game on cartridge for preservation. Or, a lot of people will buy complete editions or Game of the Year editions, and that preservation is important for sure, like more broadly speaking. But in a weird way, this whole thing almost ties into my concern about like the clean break between generations. Like, at the end of the day, what is the difference between a game key card version of a game and buying the $20 upgrade for Super Mario Party Jamboree that gives me the added now Switch 2 content like Jamboree TV? Like, I still have a digital purchase. It's still tied to a cartridge that I specifically have to put into my Switch 2 to access that digital purchase. Like, half the Switch 2 edition stuff Nintendo's doing is basically DLC locked to a specific part of the Switch ecosystem. It's true of Mario Party, like I just said. It feels even more true of something like Star-Crossed World, the new stuff in Kirby and the Forgotten Land, where it's just straight up more levels, but only on Switch 2. Like, this is kind of the next step of what's already happening. So is the game key card the problem? Or at least in some way, is it for me with my physical collection, my way of thinking about physical versus digital? Like, did we as people who bought digital DLC like set this in motion and make it the norm? Is there no hope for game preservation in the long term because now the currents are simply too strong towards the digital future? And perhaps more importantly of all, is this my epiphany that I've essentially already shattered any past time capsule idea I keep clinging to make the Switch 2 make sense to me, because basically every single one of my systems from the Nintendo DS on has at least partially included some download games or DLC, meaning they're already at the whim of server checks and online connections and someone somewhere else needing to authenticate a purchase. Like, it feels like I'm personally teetering on some sort of existential crisis about how I viewed my gaming habits and why I buy games the way I do, only for Switch 2 to maybe now reveal the true nature of the situation, which is that I'm just stuck in an old way of thinking and the rest of the industry has moved on. And I moved on not even realizing it towards that direction. So I don't know. Like, to bring this full circle, it's crazy that for a Switch 2 hype check days before launch, this is what I'm thinking about. Is like, oh, have I misunderstood why I was collecting this whole time? But I think it does speak to the fact, as much as I said and you said and you said, that the Switch 2 doesn't feel like a truly new generation in a lot of ways. It actually is kind of the tipping point for one key change, no pun intended, and that's game delivery. Like, this is Nintendo putting their digital foot forward subtly but significantly, and that is a big shift from the Switch 1. So we'll see where this goes. I mean, as soon as I have the system in my hands and I'm playing Mario Kart, I can just bury all these questions and concerns about how I get games and what that means about my collection. Like, I could bury that back down until the Switch 3. Then the dread of having done it wrong can resurface when the Switch 3 comes out, and it'll be fine. But for now, I guess onward to launch, I'm still excited about the thing. But yeah, I did not think I would spin into a whole self-questioning of, am I buying games the wrong way this whole time, that it has somehow done to me. So That's my temperature check for myself on Switch 2, I guess. And thank you for joining me on that journey.
But the journey definitely
It was a journey.
Lot to ponder for you on the
It really is. That's the thing. Is like I keep saying I buy physical, but I actually don't. I actually really don't. And game key cards just kind of expose the reality. Yeah. So we'll see. But is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about this episode that's maybe not me slowly unwinding my physical gamer identity?
I guess before I forget again, because I feel like I keep asking this after we record. If I've talked about flow on here, or maybe I did. And I'm just
You have not. Wait, did you?
I don't know.
I don't actually remember.
I think you barely mentioned it, like for
Like in
like
passing?
5 minutes. Like you didn't really want to talk about it. I think you said like, oh, it was a movie.
Okay. I guess I could elaborate a little more.
You should.
There isn't. I wish there was more to say about it. But you know, like Flow, Oscar nominated and winner, or Oscar nominee
Correct.
and winner from last year. It's funny because I saw that movie back to back with Wall-E, and I think I talked about my recent revisit of Wall-E on here. Maybe.
I think you talked about it with us after the podcast. You have a habit of getting into some good topics once we stop recording.
Well, I think for the sake of posterity, or just so I can stop wondering, I'll just talk about both. So, because they're kind of connected. Essentially, randomly, I just had, a rare bit of just like spare time, and instead of watching something new, I decided to watch Wall-E. Something about, actually, it wasn't something about. It was specifically conversations at work that were basically like talking of Wall-E and me overall, like not having the best. Not that I forgot the movie, but like I just didn't really feel too highly about it. I just felt like, yeah, it's all right. It's like in the middle of like my Pixar rankings if I were to rate them somewhere. Something about overall, yeah, the beginning, like the first 30 minutes is really great. Then it's just kind of downhill after that. And yeah, after rewatching it with, all by myself, just me getting fully sucked into the movie, damn, it was way better than I remembered. How much better? I think I'd probably put it in my top 5 now. Definitely not number 1, but it's really up there. I was mainly surprised at the parts where I thought it went downhill, which is when the people start to appear in not the Nostromo. I'm just going to call it the Nostromo because I forgot the Axiom, but I'll call it the Nostromo. And they appeared, but they're still, despite that, barely in the movie. Like, it's almost like the movie goes out of its way to ensure that people, or that the human characters appear as little as possible. And yeah, I mean, it's like I'm not really saying anything new. People love Wall-E. It's just beautifully animated. Music is great. It kind of made me miss
my favorite Pixar movie.
It made me miss like this time of Pixar where like movies were just felt like experimental and like they were just trying something different. And this one definitely like scratched like a good itch. A couple things that I didn't really like. I guess that relationship that develops between like the two people just felt kind of forced. I don't know. It felt like way too. It felt not coincidental. It felt, what's the word I'm looking for? Where it felt contrived. Like everything about like the way those two people met and they happened to be the only people that interacted with Wall-E just felt like it cheapened the movie a little bit. Like if the movie would felt like it would have been better if that had just you could have cut that completely and you would lose nothing. For a movie that I felt was a really, really well paced. But also I don't know, using real life actors for the historical footage, I still didn't really like that. I don't know, it still just felt weird to me. Surprisingly, and what's the word I'm looking for? Hypocritically, it didn't really bother me when you have real people or just like real footage from the movie that Wally's watching where he gets that little song and dance number from. For some reason, it just felt like it worked right there. But whenever you have the president talking, I forget who that actor is, but he's a very popular comedian of sorts. It wasn't. What was he in? He was a dad in something.
I'm checking. I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm looking it up for you though.
Yeah, it's like part of me wants to say like that '70s show, but I'm thinking of a different actor completely. But I know who this person
Jeff
is.
Garland, Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Okay. Yeah.
And the Goldbergs.
I see. Well, yeah. So, little nitpicks. Movie's actually great. But basically, after watching that one, I called up a friend who is also claiming Wall-E to be, their favorite movie or their favorite Pixar movie. And they recommended I check out Flow because they're like, well, if you liked Wall-E, if you want Wall-E without the people parts, then that's just Flow. So, I checked it out and it pretty much was that, like there was, I love the fact that it really was a zero, there's no dialogue throughout the whole movie. It's literally just a silent film. Sure, there's some animal noises, some meow, some bark, some whatever sound a lemur makes. But yeah, it was nice. It was slow. It was slow in the chill sense, but I don't know. It's definitely a movie I feel you can't just watch at any time. Like, I feel like you have to be in the right mood. Otherwise, it could come off as boring or slow. But I don't know. It felt like it was, for me, I wouldn't say I was super hooked the whole time, but I was intrigued enough to follow this cat go on this super random journey where I guess the earth is flooding and then it's not, and it's maybe natural causes, but also maybe supernatural. A lot of things are left up for interpretation because, like I said, there's no dialogue. It's just animals in what is presumably like a post-apocalyptic, world. But the other thing that I could just think of as I was watching it was just how nice this movie looks. All things considered. Like, sure, there are more realistic, natural environments, especially in movies. I can't believe I'm using Good Dinosaur as an example, like Good Dinosaur. But it's stylized enough that I think it still holds its own. Some of the effects, some of the music, some of the interaction with the animals. I was afraid that the animals were going to be a little too anthropomorphized in their behavior, like, react like people would more so than how a dog would. And yeah, for the most part, it felt like, yes, this seems like something a cat would do, or this seems like something a dog would do. Like, I didn't find myself thinking too many times like, oh, that cat reacted like, a person. I don't know. It's more obvious when you see other movies that have like cartoons that have like a pet dog, and the dog basically reacts like a person when they're being talked to. But yeah, this was nice. I don't think I loved it enough to say that it would be like a movie of the year kind of thing, but it was very much enjoyable, especially if you do want a nice change of pace or want to try your hand at a silent film. It's not that long either. I think it was a little over an hour and a half, maybe just an hour. I don't know. Let me see how long was this thing. But yeah, that was Flow. Maybe I was a little frustrated a couple times. Like, come on, cat. Like, stop jumping into the water. Clearly, something bad happens every time you jump into the water, and they just keep doing it. But, an hour 25, so just under an hour and a half. But, yeah, I guess that's all I got between those two.
I'd be curious to check out Flow. It's always been on the back of my mind since it won the Oscar. Well, since the trailer, really, of something worth seeing. So it sounds like maybe if I'm in the right mindset for a slower paced thing, and I do love Wall-E, so maybe I do see it.
Yeah, and you have cats, so maybe they'll enjoy.
And I have cats. I'm like, it's like I'm the center of 3 rings of a Venn diagram.
Honestly, this might be like, you might be the target demographic.
I might be.
Yeah.
And yet I wasn't there for them when they needed me most. Oh, well, they didn't need me. They won an Oscar. They're fine. So, yeah.
And made with Blender, the free animation software, which is really a nice statement to the animation industry and, the multi-billion-dollar projects from Pixar, Disney, and DreamWorks that, limitation breeds creativity, and you don't necessarily have to have the prettiest looking movie. So I do like the message that did send to the industry. So we'll see where this can potentially go in the next.
Do you think it's going to be a similar sea change as how like Spider-Verse led to more animation styles?
Oh,
like do you think smaller scale, like indie animation is going to be more of a thing going forward?
Oh yeah, because this is 100%, going to obviously inspire and motivate a lot of indie teams. And we probably won't see it for another year or two with the bigger studios because everything they have in the pipeline, they typically have like 2 to 3 years worth of movies already in the work. So maybe 4 or 5 years we might see, especially because CG doesn't require as many people as 2D films. Maybe Pixar will break into, like an A team and a B team and a C team or something and start working on these smaller projects. Or, or just give more of the creative freedom back to, the people with the ideas instead of making a bunch of sequels. I mean, that being said, we are getting a movie called Elio soon, but I don't know. Something about the trailer just doesn't really excite me.
It was originally for streaming, and then they decided to kick it to theaters. What was that?
Feels like nothing to say bad against the movie, but yeah.
No, but just in terms of how it looks. What was that one robot movie we saw? You and me, 2D animated robot and his dog. The relationship.
Robot Dreams.
Between a Robot Dreams. Yeah, I feel like once in a blue moon, there's something like Flow or Robot Dreams, or like there's like indie animated movies.
Well.
Yeah, it was, September. And I really like that one. But the thing I was gonna say is it's interesting how like there's not like an art house animation scene in the same way there is for like live action. And I understand a lot of that's because animation takes a lot more time. But if something like Flow off standard tools is able to win awards and tell stories that are award winning, it seems like maybe that opens the door, not necessarily to Pixar splitting into an ABC team, but like just studios that seek out existing indie stuff to distribute, the A24s of the world sometimes, or like Fox Searchlight sometimes. Like it seems like there's an opportunity there for them to maybe latch on to more animated stuff and have more animated stuff show up at like Sundance or whatever. Like this seems like it's opening a door potentially. I'd be curious to see where it goes.
Yeah. Speaking of A24, is this just like a fake thing, or are they actually making an Elden Ring movie?
Yes, it's real.
Huh. Interesting.
Game adaptations are the hot new thing. Forget superheroes and comic books. Game adaptations are where it's at right now for Hollywood. So, yes, it's going to be one of many. There's also an Outrun movie in the works. I don't think it's A24, though. But like the 90s Sega game Outrun. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff in the pipeline, new and old stuff. I think Split Fiction or It Takes Two is being turned into a movie. I think it's It Take Two is being turned into a movie.
It Take Two makes sense. And that one is such an easy adaptation. They could literally just just make like a fixed camera version of the game, and you basically have the movie and just like, shorten a lot of the gameplay segments. It basically makes itself, which is crazy.
In a way, that's how Last of Us Season 1 was, although my understanding is Season 2 has diverted a little.
Point. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if, obviously, if that does well, Split Fiction probably won't be too far behind. But,
yeah, and I should clarify if I understand correctly. I did watch all of Season 2 of Last of Us. I just don't have the game as a reference point, so I just know what the show's done.
Wow.
But, yeah. I mean, yeah. So, have you guys seen Season 2 of Last of Us?
No.
Played the game.
Oh, okay. Because the internet's not a big fan of the season, it seems. I enjoyed it. I don't want to spoil anything. So I'll just say I enjoyed it. I thought the cliffhanger was a little, but I enjoyed it overall. So apparently viewership's down like 50% on the finale year over year, which is a lot.
Well, because of the big thing that happens,
exactly.
Obviously. But,
yes.
I've also seen the changes that they've done to from the game to the show.
Yep.
And they are incredibly questionable changes that they've done.
I don't even know what they are. Do we want to dive into spoilers for a second
Sure.
about Last of Us? Let's throw it in.
Yeah,
Spoiler
what was
alert.
the cliffhanger in the show? Because you have to refresh. my
Okay, the
memory.
cliffhanger in the show, there were two. All right.
The cliffhanger
so the
is
first
when
one,
they switched to Abby.
Yeah, so, but kind of. So first, there's one cliffhanger, which is Abby and Bella Ramsey, Ellie, are like head to head, facing each other. She's holding a gun at her. Abby's holding a gun at Ellie, and then goes to black. Gunfire goes off. You don't know who shot who shot what, who's hurt, who's not. And then they cut to like what's supposed to be like a stinger, which is like Abby wakes up and she's in one of the stadiums in Seattle, and it rewinds the clock to day one of the Seattle story. Because they were marking each day as they were going through the show, day 1, day 2, day 3. And then the big stinger is, well, how did Abby find her? Let's rewind the clock, and that will be what season 3 is about. And I'm going to be honest, I was like, I don't really need to know. It's fine. I know her motives. I know there's a gunshot. I know what Ellie was trying to do. I don't need to know how Abby got from point A to B. She's already at point B. How's that a cliffhanger? So that was the only thing where I was like, okay. But
So yeah, that's exactly how it happens in the game too. Abby shoots, cuts to black, and then we go back to Abby's day one in Seattle. For one,
it just doesn't. Yeah, go ahead.
well, that was a big part of the reason why the game was so controversial, because after playing as Ellie and going through all this stuff, and they don't really give you a reason to like Abby at all in that first half of the game. It was very jarring to them be like, oh, now I have to play as this character that I hate, which, yeah, that was the reason why the game was so divisive in the first place.
Right. But the thing is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a change in the show. They tell you Abby's motives very clearly in the show already. Like, you understand why she's in the position she's in and doing what she's doing. So, like, I feel like I don't have questions. Like, she's not hated in the same... Like, I didn't hate her in the way it sounds like the game did. Like, they, right at the start, they're like, so, Abby's dad, and here's what happened, and here's why she's going after Joel, and da-da-da. And it's like, okay, there's their motives. So I don't really know what this is going to tell me.
If I remember correctly, in the game it happens when you start playing as Abby. I don't remember when they tell you.
And it's
because
interesting
I remember you spent a lot of time with Abby and her dad in that second part of the game.
Yeah, or at the beginning when you're introduced to playing as Abby, you play as her while she's hanging out with her dad. Yeah, a couple of days before.
Based on how I
and that makes
dad,
sense.
I can blame her. So.
And and like that makes, like how the game did it makes sense. But yeah, the show, I assume for narrative purposes, like, well, we need to give a motive right up front. We can't just have this random ragtag group of sort of Firefly-ish characters come in and just kill Joel. So I understand why the show changed it, but then to go back to the beat of like, well, now you gotta know why Abby did it. I'm like, I already know why Abby did it. Why are you?
No. No. So this isn't her.
Yeah, I know. I misspoke. This is her catching up to Ellie once they're both in Seattle after she did it.
Yeah, yeah. There you go.
But even then, my point is, like, I know her motives. I know what's going on. I don't have very many questions. I mean, I'll watch it because I enjoy the show, but like, I'm kind of like,
arguably,
sure.
I liked Abby's story a bit better than
interesting.
than Ellie's.
Okay.
Mainly because it feels like another story, or like a story separate from the story of part 1, and for the first half of part 2. Quite honestly, in my opinion, what they should have done with the series is given us Abby's story first, and then done Ellie's story second. That's how I would have. That's how I would have structured this.
That's probably a very tough sell for the execs at HBO to be like, hey, so all those stars we had, they're just not on the show for a season.
No, yeah, it makes sense.
But no, it and I mean, I do have, I guess, loose questions about like, okay, so something's up between her and the guy that runs the militia. Like, there's a little weird, not bad blood. Something's there that's weird. But I don't know. Like, usually I go along with whatever, like, a show's like, we're going to show you this. I'm like, great. But I just like,
just
okay.
Wait until we get the discourse of the parallels of Israel-Palestine for season 3. I'm just saying.
Oh, in terms of like, I think I know where you're going with that. Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah, as if real life discourse wasn't bad enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of the changes that are like completely questionable is in the show, I guess she accidentally shoots the guy and his pregnant girlfriend.
Yes.
In the show, it was deliberate. She shoots the guy. And,
you mean the game? In the game?
Yeah. In the game, she stabs the woman, and then shoots the guy, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Like it's on purpose,
so,
and it actually haunts her that she just killed like a pregnant woman, as opposed to this weird drawn out scene where she's trying to deliver the baby. They sort of
yeah.
They sort of, it seems like the show is trying to make us not hate they're trying to make it not make her seem as much as a sociopath, because in the game she does not give two craps about anything. She is killing everybody in her way.
They show some of that in the show. So when she goes after when she goes down to there's also the whole thing with the show where they made it not airborne and then they made it airborne, the infectious spores.
Yeah.
Like, wasn't the game always airborne? Yeah. So she goes into a basement where now it's airborne, and she basically kills someone with a pickaxe or like an axe or something. Pretty graphic. Like, they don't show it too much, but like it's supposed to be like unhinged, crazy psychopath, like what you're describing. And yeah, then when they cut to the
pretty intense how they did it in the game.
Oh, is it? Yeah. And then when they cut to, a little later when she kills the guy and his pregnant girlfriend, wife, whatever, it seems like she had the intention of shooting the guy, but she didn't know the bullet caliber was what it was, and it went through him and through her and into the wall.
Yeah, in the game,
so
she just
one
straight
intentional,
up
one not. Yeah.
To...
But then, yeah, I just gonna say the whole like trying to save the baby moment, and then it does haunt her afterwards that she did that in a different way than what you're describing with the game, where it sounds like it haunts her that she was so vicious. Here it's like, I can't believe I did it. But they keep a very on the nose parallel of like Dina is pregnant and Ellie's essentially gonna be like the dad because they're in a relationship. Yay! Oh, but now like here's another pregnant woman that she accidentally killed, and to understand what having a pregnant significant other is, and like now she cares, and it's just like it's a little on the nose with the like the
line
symbolism.
That line and the delivery of "I'm gonna be a dad" is so cringe, because that is not the character at all in the game.
Interesting.
It's super. It's so weird. In the show, when she kills I forgot what's her name. The character in the basement, or like the scene's all red.
The one I was just talking about. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. When she goes back to Dina, she is visibly like shaken.
Yeah, she's rattled.
She's incredibly rattled compared to the show, where she's almost like at ease with it.
You mean the game?
No. The game
in the show, she seems a little rattled.
Oh, that is nothing compared to how she is in the game. Like, I'm going to send you the comparisons. Like
the scene.
Like in the show, she's like just sort of talking to Dina about it, as opposed to in the game where she is like on the verge of tears about how like vicious she was about killing.
So
killing that
it
character.
seemed like they were playing around with the ideas of how sociopathic is she, but they were presenting them. Like they were playing with the same themes, but presenting them in different characters' deaths in different ways, which is interesting.
Yeah,
because like they have her be more nonchalant about one death, but more concerned about another death. But in the game, it sounds like it flips. So that's interesting. But in the game, it sounds like it builds up, like the like sociopathic murdering builds up as she goes further into the experience. While here, it almost seems like it's going the other way. Like she kind of winds down into more accepting. I don't know. Weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because the show was praised so highly on following the game so closely for season one. I'm curious. I'm sure there's all sorts of reasons, but it's interesting that season two diverted in some notable ways after season one was like one of the big things was, wow, they stuck to the game so well.
That assault in the second episode, the assault on the town, doesn't happen in the game at all.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, there's some I know the internet's kind of mixed on the season, gamers and not. I thought season two, I really liked the set piece of season two at the town, even if it didn't happen in the game. And obviously the Joel moment. I really liked the flashback episode they did, where it's like, Ellie and Joel's relationship over the years. And I really liked the set piece where they were in the subway tunnel in the subway car, and I thought that was extremely well done. There's also a set piece, I think, in episode 2, where one of them's crawling under a fence or something, and like the infected are like sort of like on the fence, like above them. Like there's some really cool. Yeah, and there's some really cool moments and set pieces and things that happened in season 2 that kind of, like when it was firing on all cylinders, it was great. And then there were moments where it just, I guess, wasn't firing on all cylinders, as it seems to be the case from both the gamer perspective and how I felt about the cliffhangers. So if they can play up the strengths of what they did well in season 2 into season 3 and kind of learn from what they maybe didn't do as well, I'm still looking forward to season 3. But yeah, I think season 1 was stronger overall, probably.
Yep.
Yeah. So, been watching a lot of TV, actually. I also watched all of Andor season 2, caught up with the new Conan O'Brien Must Goes. Good month. May was a great month of television. The Rehearsal, I binged that.
Oh man, the Rehearsal.
That's one I'll definitely make time for.
So insane,
dude. It I haven't even wrapped my head around what I want. Like I was gonna like tweet something about it. I'm like, I need to like give this some thought. Like it's so unhinged. Like it's. We won't talk about it in depth until Angel's seen it, but what a fascinating television program that is.
Yeah. Rehearsal was crazy. I still haven't finished The Studio. I've been meaning to get back to it.
Oh, I finished The Studio. Yeah, I finished that too. Yeah. It's a good show.
Yeah. I saw the first 2 episodes and I really enjoyed it.
There's some really great. There's some episodes that are stronger than others, but there's a couple that are like they actually recreate the entire Golden Globe like award show at the Beverly Hilton in full for one of the episodes, and they bring in a bunch of cameos that are just like in the background. Like they really are sticking to like being authentic to what I guess they feel, working in Hollywood is like. It's very impressive.
I saw Captain America: Brave New World yesterday.
Oh,
that movie
rapid fire thoughts
starts off really, really strong, and right after the assassination attempt on Harrison Ford, just dives off the tallest cliff that I've ever seen any of these movies dive off of. What a disappointment! It started off so well, and then it's like the most boring 2 hours afterwards. Like not even. I mean, the Red Hulk versus Captain America scene was pretty cool. Don't get me wrong, but like, man, that scene where they're where it's America versus Japan,
the
around the Celestials. Like, man, some of the most sterile combat I've seen in these movies. Like, just what a disappointment. Just, man, Anthony Mackie deserved better because he's like super charming in those first like 20 minutes of the movie. Like, I really like the guy that's playing the new Falcon. I think his character's great. But yeah, everything after that assassination scene was just, man, what a slog to go through. Yeah, he's got a sidekick. His name is Joaquin Torres.
And it didn't help. I feel like
to go with the New Eagle, so I guess that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, a callback. But I was gonna say it didn't help also that because they did. I know I said this when the movie came out, but because they did reveal. I mean, obviously he was Red Hulk. They didn't hide it that much, but because they revealed it in the marketing as being such a big thing, in those slower moments and like the set piece, are just like, okay, let's get to the Hulk. Let's go. And then it's just like they're building it up like you don't know it's coming, but you kind of know it's coming. But then they do all these set pieces to drag out until it's its arrival, and then it's just like just get to the thing that you marketed. Like it was such a swing and a miss in that regard, I feel like.
Yeah, I didn't care at all for that new Black Widow character.
Oh yeah, that felt like
she's
a
so
stand-in
tiny too.
because
She's
they
like,
couldn't get.
She's so small. Yeah. Like the actress, she's so little. I thought that was funny. But
I didn't even think about it from that perspective. But now that you mention it,
because I swear, like every single time that she was next to somebody, like the framing was much wider because of just how small she was.
Oh, that's fun. I did not even notice that, but that's really funny.
Yeah. But like, you absolutely didn't need that subplot with Gus's character at all. I'm blanking on the actor's name. You didn't need that side plot at all. Just. Man, what a disappointment! Because honestly, in those first 20 minutes, I was like, you know what? This isn't bad. This is like, I don't know why people are giving this movie so much crap. Oh, this fell off a cliff so quick. Like, man, so disappointing.
Well, fingers crossed that Fantastic Four is good when it comes out in a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot to look forward to this summer, I feel like, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Starting with Switch 2 in 3 days.
Captain America Brave New World has the opposite, is quite the opposite of Mission Impossible, where the first like 40 minutes I'm like, man, I don't know where this is going, and then it just becomes the greatest movie of all time.
So hear me out. Stitch the first part of Captain America onto the back part of Mission Impossible, and you should, in concept, have a very good movie. Don't
have
change
a pretty
anything.
good movie.
Just take the two halves and smush them together. Yeah. There you go.
They're similar plot beats for sure.
There you go. See, it's not a crazy idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess with that, unless anyone has anything else, that does it for this episode. Our final episode of the Switch 1 era. That's been about a decade, if you count the days of speculating about NX, is coming to a close. 9 years.
Yeah. Quick, favorite Switch game?
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Tetris 99. I'm saying both. I know I'm cheating.
Nope, you got one.
Okay, then I'm going to throw a curveball. Mario Odyssey.
Okay. Angel?
I guess I have to go Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably... you know what?
I just played it consistently throughout its whole lifespan, and I'm still playing it now. Despite there being amazing games that I really love on the Switch, like, I can't deny how many great new experiences it gave me. I made new friends through it, and kind of started a new era of entering tournaments with it, and then they kind of ended, but mainly bar tournaments. But they were still fun to enter and win.
Yeah,
and obviously
about...
and obviously the competitive game I still play with my brother from time to time. So yeah, Bowser.
You raise a really good point. You raise a really good point. If you think about the legacy of the Switch in our social circle and in the law social circles as this like centerpiece of a lot of fun hangouts and chances to play things in groups
Killer
together.
Queen Black Knights, damn,
like Killer Queen Black, Astro Bear, Smash Bros, Mario Kart, Splatoon during COVID, Animal Crossing during COVID.
Rocket
like
League.
there was
Kicked
Rocket
Angel's
League.
ass on those gummy bear games or whatever they're called.
Astro Bears. Yeah, Astro Bears.
Its legacy is like, oh yeah, a lot of Jackbox. It was more
Ultimate
so, and the
Chicken
Wii U I
Wars.
thought at the time was a great social machine for our group of friends. But man, like the amount of what we squeezed out of the Switch and its whole like ethos being a system for like social gaming, like yeah, it was a really cool run. Oh yeah, Towerfall. There's a lot of really good, and the fact that like the indie scene was so big on there to make so many of those games you just said possible, and Nintendo actually got their ducks in a row
Just Shapes
correctly
and
from day
Beats
one.
is really cool.
Yeah,
Shapes and
it
Beats,
was
that goddamn game.
Ding Dong XL. Real game.
somehow
Ding
got a
Dong
lot of
XL.
managed at Ding Dong XL.
We sure
Infinite
did.
Adventure is definitely my new favorite property that was born on the Switch, or I guess IP. That was really cool. I love that one.
There's a lot of really cool stuff, and
What a good
hopefully
collection from Capcom
since-
too. The Capcom Fighting Game collection. I still want to get the second one, so I could at least have Power Stone on rotation. Because
I was gonna say the beauty of the Switch 2, and hopefully this holds true, is that it is, as we were saying, for both good and bad, basically a continuation of Switch 1. So Switch 1 games are still gonna be good on Switch 2. Multiplayer things will still carry on. It's just beefing it up, adding more features.
maybe we'll give
So,
Apex
the legacy
Legends
continues.
another try and see how it fares this time around.
Give what another try?
Apex Legends, didn't we try playing it together once?
Oh, Apex Legend. Yeah,
Hey, you
yeah,
guys
yeah.
finally played at a higher than 3 frames.
I'm looking forward to all 6 frames that the Switch 2 will allow. Actually, to be fair to Switch 2, it packs a pretty good punch. So, yeah, maybe we can actually run that. But yeah, it was a good run we had with the Switch. You gotta get real weird about it. Think about how much your life has or hasn't changed since the Switch came out.
Are you
I
saying
guess
that
without
because
the
before and
Switch,
after
I
you
would never
were
get the
and
Steam
weren't married?
Deck.
Sorry, what? What was that?
I guess before the Switch you weren't married, and after the Switch you were married.
Oh, I didn't mean that. I mean like career changes. I mean like different people coming and going in our lives as they move to other places. I mean like the COVID coming and going. But yeah, I guess my marriage also counts. Actually, yeah. I mean, we
You have the
played a lot of Animal Crossing during COVID, me and Rachel. So yeah, it does count. We literally had Animal Crossing cake toppers on our wedding cake for that exact reason. So yeah, I guess it does count. But I wasn't thinking of that initially.
Wow.
Well, because I was saying about our lives, like our group, like you, me, Kevin, initially.
Wow.
But yeah. Sorry, Rachel. I still love you. But yeah. Anything else, or should we call it here for now, I guess?
My favorite game was Mario Kart 8 since I was cut off by Jason. Now we can end it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Wow.
Sorry, Kevin. Okay. Well, now I'll just interject
What a
again to
host.
give the show notes. I know, I'm the worst. So to hear me cut off Kevin again in the future, you can subscribe to our podcast on all the apps. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, TuneIn. You can find us on YouTube at Ram Nintendo. We're also on Twitter at Ram Nintendo. We're also individually on social media. I am JSR7 on Threads and Twitter. Kevin is KVN Gomi on Blue Sky and Twitter, where he can't be cut off by me. And Angel is World of Weros with an S on the end on Instagram. And we will be back post Switch 2 launch. I think the thinking was we're on our regular schedule, so probably like what life is like 1 week in with the Switch 2 and our impressions at that point. So look forward to that. In the meantime, Kevin, the floor is yours for the final word.
Yeah, he feels so bad that he cut me off that he gave me the final word. I know it.